You're listening to Bark and Wag's 15-Minute Vet Talk. Each week, your host, Polly ReQua, interviews veterinarians and individuals in the pet industry from across the nation answering pet questions. Bark and Wag podcast is produced weekly for your enjoyment, and show notes can be found at barkandwag.com under the podcast tab. That's BARKNWAG.com. Please remember to subscribe to Bark and Wag 15-Minute Vet Talk.
Welcome to Bark and Wag 15-Minute Vet Talk. I'm your host, Polly ReQua. Today we're talking to Chris Wallen, president of Labrador Education Rescue Network out of Northern Illinois and Southern Wisconsin. They are a 501(c) organization committed to placing abandoned and unwanted Labrador retrievers in new homes. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you.
Well, I'm super excited to have you on the podcast because a few weeks ago, we talked to Dr. Meredith Rives about puppy mills. And what I wanted to do is bring you on to talk about backyard breeders. I'm part of Learn. I used to do home visits for Learn, and I've been following the stories, and I thought it would be very important for the listeners to know what a backyard breeder is and about how you saved all these labs on Operation Sunday Lab. So welcome.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your interest in our group. Learn's been a rescue since 1999. We've adopted out probably over 2,500 dogs in those years. We've got probably about 100 volunteers.
Well, and what's really interesting about the volunteers is that they're all over Northern Illinois and Wisconsin. So when you're actually rescuing a dog, there's people in transport that will get the dog to a certain point that then another volunteer meets at that highway junction and then gets the dog to the foster parent. So it's pretty a phenomenal organization on how you rescue the animals.
And I think that too, I think a lot of people don't understand that it's a rescue. So there's no brick and mortar, that the dogs live with families, not in a shelter with, 20 or 30 other dogs, but actually in with a family, so that when you adopt from a rescue, or at least ours, I think most organized like Learn is, that the foster home is going to share so much knowledge with you about that dog before you make the decision to adopt it. What are the good traits? What are the bad traits? What are they eating? What is their vet records? What's their name? I mean, there's just so many things that you learn by adopting a dog through a rescue versus a shelter. And I'm not bashing shelters. We need those, but there's a rescue for almost every breed. So I would encourage people to look at rescues when you look to adopt a dog.
So please tell me, what is a backyard breeder?
A backyard breeder is an amateur animal breeder whose breeding is substandard. They may have started out with good intentions, like the person who we got the Stop the Madness dogs from, but not keeping track of who's been bred to who, spaying and neutering, being responsible about who the dogs are adopted to, and overall just good health and vetting. Okay,
and so can anyone be a backyard breeder, or there's a certain amount of dogs that make that name a backyard breeder?
Well, I think that a lot of people have, I want to breed my 2 dogs or breed my dog because I want my kids to see experience the birth of puppies and raise puppies. And, there just isn't a need for those additional puppies in the world. I can't even imagine what the number of dogs that are put down each year because of overbreeding. So I think that, breeding should be left to the professionals who are keeping track of their lines, being aware that if there's, say, hip dysplasia in a breeding line, that they don't breed that dog anymore to try to get that out of their breeding stock.
And so how did Operation Sunday Labs, you rescued over 11 Labradors. How did that come about?
We worked with another rescue in Minnesota who became aware of this person and his almost a hoarding situation, I think you could almost qualify it as. So they really were the key element in getting the dogs away and out of this situation. They contacted us and knowing that we were a lab rescue to see if we could help. And once they got this guy to actually agree to surrender some of the dogs, then it was a big operation. We only had maybe 2 days notice that we had 11 dogs coming in and we needed foster homes and transport. And it was just an amazing operation to be able to do that in such a short period of time.
So what happened when you arrived at the location?
We met at a dog/car wash in Janesville, which allowed us to bring all the dogs in where it was warm. We got a chance to evaluate them, their health, just overall condition. They all got a bath. All the foster homes came and We assigned a dog to each home. The first group we took, one ended up in the emergency room because they did have a wound that needed care. And from there, the dogs just all dispersed with their respective foster homes and started to learn how to be a dog.
And were you actually on site when they got the dogs, or were you at Janesville? Did the other organization pick up the dogs?
The other organization transported them down from northern Wisconsin to us all 3 times that we took dogs from this person. So like I said, they were just phenomenal. Without them, I don't know that this could have happened.
And so why weren't all the dogs taken?
I think that, like I said before, he probably could be considered a hoarder, not wanting to give them up, not wanting to realize that they weren't being cared for properly. They weren't getting the nutrition, vet care, things like that. But according to Wisconsin law, he wasn't really breaking any of the laws. He was, just under the radar enough that the state wasn't able to help us close him down. So with his failing health and the help of his family and this other rescue over the almost 2+ years, we did finally manage to get him to surrender all the dogs. So he is no longer in business.
Thank goodness, right?
Yes, for sure.
Gosh. And so tell me about Peanut, because the next rescue was called Operation Peanut's Promise, correct?
Right. Yes. Peanut was very malnourished, probably a classic case of inbreeding. So he had neurological problems, tick-borne illnesses, which cause all kinds of problems, malnourished, just a very, very sad case. And unfortunately, even with excellent vet care and all the love in the world, he wasn't able to survive.
No. And how did the remaining dogs do?
All are doing wonderful. I believe all but a few have been adopted already, including the ones from the third group. And with the third group that we took in November of last year, 4 of the dogs were pregnant. So we ended up with 15 puppies. All the puppies are in homes and growing and thriving, and they will, most likely be a normal size lab. All the adult dogs we took were very, very small, partially from inbreeding and then just the poor nutrition. So we're very hopeful that they'll all, they're all being very well cared for and very much loved.
And so some of the description of when you went to, or when the dogs were rescued, that they were living in barrels and small dog houses and having cheap food, and, that they were eating their own excrement, and they were unsocialized and had never seen a vet. How can we change the laws so that the dogs are protected?
I think just staying aware, of what's going on with like the ASPCA, your state laws, your Department of Agriculture, and just pay attention. This guy ended up under the radar because he was so remote. He didn't have neighbors who really even knew what was happening to actually see the condition the dogs were in. So when you see something that's just not right, say something. If somebody's selling puppies at a flea market or on Craigslist or something, something's not right there and they need to be investigated.
And so the first time that you rescued, there were 11 dogs, and then you went back and there were over 14?
I can't remember the exact numbers, but yeah, I think all in all there was probably almost 50. Then I don't think that counts the puppies.
And then when you're a foster parent, do you still need help with people to foster the dogs?
With this group of dogs, they are all, like I said, have either been adopted or are in foster care right now, still being evaluated and getting their health. And they're very, very shy. So some have needed some extra training and just reassurance that the world isn't going to hurt them. Aww. But mostly we need right now, it's financial. The cost to get these dogs healthy and vetted and spayed and neutered, it's going to probably end up averaging about $500 a dog.
Okay. And so what I can do is get a link from you and put that in the show notes.
Okay.
So if people would like to donate, they can donate, via a link.
Yep.
And so are you working on any other backyard breeders that you'll need help with in the future?
Hopefully not. I don't have any on the list right now, but we are always in need of foster homes, volunteers to help with this kind of situation. Fundraising, tennis balls need to be, acquired from tennis clubs. So we bag those and sell them as a fundraiser for the rescue at different events. there's all kinds of ways to help. And if you visit our website, a lot of that is explained on there. And of course, we also have a Facebook page. You can follow us and see the all the updates on these labs from this backyard breeder.
Great. Well, we certainly appreciate you being on the podcast, and I hope you will come back.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Bark and Wag's 15-Minute Vet Talk. If you like what you just heard, we hope you'll pass along our web address, www.barkandwag.com, to your friends and other pet owners. Have a pressing question for a veterinarian? Ask your question at barkandwag.com under the podcast tab. This has been a KFR production. Join us next time for another edition of Bark and Wag's 15-Minute Vet Talk.